to the channel. You know who it is by now.
Jimothy.
So ladies and gents, we are back and I am in the testing phase for YCS Birmingham, and to be honest ladies and gents, I'm not too sure what to play. I've got a couple of options. I've got the option of Malice, I've also got the option of Crystron, which is what you see before you ladies and gents, and I also have obviously Kashtira Fiendsmith. Now those are what I consider to be more of the solid options. I don't own Ryzio, so there's no Ryzio gonna be able to be played, but I do have quite a few friends that are playing Ryzio, so that's definitely a deck that I'm going to test against. However, Crystron is something that I was messing around with since about Friday actually, and I tested with one of my buddies, shout out to Tom, and like I think this deck is is super interesting, probably a little bit crazy with the amount of like consistency it's got now. So I thought I'd just show a quick profile. I do own these cards, the physical. I own these cards physically, but I thought I'd just show you an EDO Pro just because I'm still tinkering around with the build and I'm not too sure which direction I'm going to go, and I think that mainly revolves around the extra deck, but I'll talk about that when I get there. So just starting us off ladies and gents, 3 Solfethnia, 3 Solfador, 1 Thisfern. Now if you don't know what some of these do ladies and gents, a lot of the Crystron cards play out the graveyard, so Dweller does hard counter this deck, but it's still very powerful. And with Dweller semi being in the format just because of Ryzio, you can potentially steal a few games from people that aren't on Dweller basically. But Solfethnia is a pitch and a summon, then it pops itself and then it can summon one from deck, which is nice. Solfador can Foolish Burial too, and if you didn't know, there's a lot of recursion with the Crystron deck, especially from graveyard, from banished, shuffling resources back into your deck. It's a nice little bit of a resource loop. Kind of reminds me a little bit like Orcust. Now you do get locked into machine monsters from the extra deck, so you do need to bear that in mind specifically. And if you use some of the unsummon effects like Thisfern as well as Smigers, which you probably won't do, you can get like hard locked into machine type synchro monsters, but that seldom comes up, mainly because when you resolve in Smiger, which is a search for a Crystron spell or trap, you just get locked into machine monsters basically, so you can kind of play around that. Thisfern, but you can banish this from the graveyard and it searches a Crystron monster, super consistent. Tristaros, this is the new support from Supreme Darkness, busted card. Like during either player's turn during the main phase, if your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, just special summon one from deck and synchro summon. You do run into Ash a little bit. If your opponent is a little bit savvy, they'll hold Ash for Tristaros, but depending on what the board state is, you can kind of like play around Ash, especially with Cyber Dragon Infinity on the field. One Presortal, this basically allows you to special summon one from hand. It's a nice little bit of an extender, especially with Foolish Burial in the deck. You can banish this from graveyard, spec one from hand and just keep playing, so it allows for some weird lines, but I do think it's worth the inclusion. One Citri, again this is a little bit like Tristaros where it can revive one and synchro summon, but this time it revives one from graveyard, so it can synchro summon on your opponent's turn or during your battle phase or the main phase. Crystron Inclusion, again this is the new support from Supreme Darkness, and this just basically it's a 10k on summon. It searches for a card and then when it pops you can revive one from the graveyard, which I think is busted. So this is an automatic 3 of ladies and gents, no questions asked. Crystron Cluster, this is the grind of the deck. It puts back resources and it's basically a virtual Chuche but for Crystron. So you shuffle back a resource, pop a card on field. If you control a Crystron synchro monster, you can pop 2 cards. They need to be face up though. So just for a little bit of consistency, I am playing Speedroid Terratop alongside the 1 Tekatomberg. Now I know there's some people that can play the Kashtira stuff, but I just feel like you go way out of the way just to get into some of the monsters in the Crystron deck, most notably your Smyga, which is a level 3, something to worth noting because Cherubini is in the deck, spoiler alert. So this just allows you to do that, especially with one of your hand traps that you've got. You can just normal summon like an Ash Blossom, for example, and just be able to just go off into your Cherubini. Forbidden Droplets, just because most of your cards play out the graveyard, and being able to negate a field is really strong. Triple Ash Blossom just for some protection, some defensive options. Full loss is everywhere. Yeah. Double Triple Tactics Talent. I would like to play this at 3, but there's no room for it. Double Infinite Impermanence, double Droll, and double Nibiru just makes for some variance in terms of hand traps. I would like to put some more hand traps in. I was playing this deck without the Terratop engine, but you just need the consistency. One Core by the Grave, as well as the one Foolish Burial. Now the extra deck, this is where I'm a little bit undecided, and why I've decided to show you guys on EDO Pros, just because I'm still messing around with the extra deck. Now some of the cards just speak for themselves and are auto include, whereas some are a little bit more questionable. So Crystron Quarion Gandrax, just this is your main boss monster, being able to just banish from field or graveyard. It cooks Fiendsmith if you time it right, and it can cook most decks, to be honest, just because it just gets rid of like threats basically, as long as it can be targeted, obviously. And the cool thing that I realized with this card is when it's destroyed, it can revive from graveyard or banished, and that includes both players' graveyards or banished zone. So I've taken, well, you'll see in a couple of the replays that I'll leave you with, I took a Sovereign Sword Soul Chengying, which was just yeah, it was just wraps after that. Cyber Dragon Nova and Infinity, this goes without saying. This is a mainstay endboard piece, sucks up a monster, Omni Negate, just crazy. Samurai Destroyer is specifically there just to kind of like play around Nibiru. Nibiru does hurt this deck if Nibiru at the right time, but you can seldom go into Samurai Destroyer just to be able to play around it, because once it gets removed from the field by your opponent's card effect, it just specs one machine monster in your graveyard, so you literally just play through it. Speedway Chambara, this is there for the OTK. It can attack twice and it gains 200 attack at the start of damage step, and that's just like not a once per turn, so just attack. It's like 4600 damage just by itself. So yeah, OTK is not too difficult in this deck, especially in an open field. This is a little bit up for contention. Axel Synchron, this could be anything. This could be a target for Nova. I know some people are playing Macabre, but I put the Axel Synchron just because I want to go into some level 10 synchros in the form of Arms of Genix Return 0. Again, this card can be pretty spicy. It can negate monster effects equal to the number of different attributes in the graveyard. So if you've got 3 different attributes, that's 3 monster effect negations. And as you can see, ladies and gents, along with the Ash Blossom and the Dawn Dragstar, as well as the Axel Synchro, there's a little bit of coverage for some of the attributes that you're most likely to run into. One Dawn Dragstar, this is just like a mainstay. This is a staple in this deck. One Satellite Warrior, now I don't know if you need this so much, and I could actually change this out for another 10. I was actually thinking about playing the Centurion Synchro, I think the level 12, I can't remember its name for the life of me, it's gone out of my head, but the one that pops on summon and draws a card basically. So yeah, I was thinking about playing that, but I don't know, I'm kind of undecided. One SP, just because you can make use of the Cherubini or the Clockwork Knight, as well as the one Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, ladies and gents. Now this just kind of combos with the Speedroid engine. If you do have the Speedroid engine and you have access to your Smyga, you can go into one Bamboozling Gossip Shadow just to protect yourself or insulate yourself from like Nibiru or even Droll, to be honest, because it just kind of like helps to mitigate some of those instances. Well, I say Droll, you're going to be searching your your Takatomborg. Well, depends on your hand basically, and you're seeing some of the replays, and I'm going to leave you with some replays, ladies and gents. Now, like I said, this deck is not finished by any stretch of the imagination. I'm still toying with it. I want to make it a little bit more optimal, and I feel like it's the extra deck where the issues lie, because I want some more variance. I know the deck is highly consistent and it's got a couple of end boards which are just kind of like set in stone, so to speak. So I want to see if there's anything else you could add to that, just to make it a little bit more flexible in approaching boards, especially going second. Going first, it just sets up almost an FTK with all those hard negates, but going second, that's where the tinkering lies. Maybe like Vermilion Dragon Mech or a Navy Dragon Mech, I might even include some of those. But like I said, I'm still testing. Get at me in that comment section below if there's a few things that you think that I should be included in this list, ladies and gents. And I'm going to leave you with a few replays. I'm just testing against Sword Soul on the EDO Pro AI. It's not the best AI, but it just gives me a flavor and gives you guys a feel of what the deck can do. So as always, we find ourselves at the end of another video. If you do enjoy this content, you know what to do by now. Hit that like button, share, subscribe, and I will leave you with the replays. Peace.